What's up, everybody? I recently had an opportunity to make a tube rear end for a drag car. Usually I just do drift cars, but this time we got to do a drag car, and it's an N54 powered, big turbo, full E90 drag car on slicks. And I wanted to show the differences between how I did this rear end and how I normally do a drift rear end or tube rear end. In a drag car, hopefully you're not hitting your rear bumper on anything. Maybe the ground if you're doing a wheelie off the line or something, but I don't even think you want to do that. Because we don't want to hit the rear bumper on anything, we don't need all these kind of swinging bars or easily replaceable bars. We don't have to follow Formula D rules. I mean, we can make this as light as possible, and the main goal is to push as much weight back in the car as we can. So it's a little bit different than a tube rear end for drifting, since in drifting we don't want all this pendulum effect, so we're pushing a lot of weight forward. But in a drag car, they want the weight real low and real far over the rear axle to push those wheels into the ground on the launch. So to do a tube rear end in a drag car is a lot different than doing a tube rear end in a drift car. And let me show you how. So our patient today is a beautiful N54 powered E90. This is actually the first E90 tube rear end I've done too. They've all been E92s. But yeah, it's pretty nice. Slicks, nitrous, big turbo with a hood dump. This thing's freaking sweet. These guys wanted to mount everything really far back in the car, and they wanted a clean mounted rear bumper. So I think they had some bash bar before with a jack point on it that made it so they couldn't mount their rear bumper nicely. But one of our main goals was to, first off, drop a ton of weight, but second off, make sure that rear bumper is really nicely mounted. So firstly, let's talk about the weight. This is Nikki's car. We basically did the same chop as we always do. We actually did a little further into the chassis, so I just went a little bit further over here because this tube structure is much larger than normal. This structure is larger than normal because we have to fit a fuel cell in here. So these are the two straps that hold the bottom of the fuel cell. This will be the edge of the fuel cell. This whole square is 1/2 inch bigger this way and this way. And that's to accommodate the welds in the corners, maybe these stitch welds. Just have a 1/4 inch of play on either side, because actually I didn't have the fuel cell when I made this. So they just gave me the dimensions. But it should sit in here, and it should sit about 2 inches higher than this top bar, which makes the jack point 1 inch lower than the fuel cell. So we're good there. We have the battery mounted back here. This is, I think, an OEM sized BMW battery. So there's no tray on the market here that fits an OEM sized BMW battery, or a lightweight tray. So I had to bend that up and make it. And then his nitrous bottle will sit right here. So I asked him to purchase the nitrous outlet, vertical nitrous bottle. He can bolt it to this or make a stand or mount it angular. But anyway, he can set the nitrous bottle right there. And this whole space will be filled up with fuel cell, battery, and nitrous. It's going to look pretty freaking nice. So that takes care of pushing all the weight really far back. You can see rear strut towers are over there. And the tires are over here, which makes all of this weight that used to be kind of further up in the chassis way back here. As far as the bumper goes, we had to make these mounts, and we had to be really careful to make sure that they were going to hit the bumper where it needs to be. So we have the forward mounts here and here. These guys go to quick pins right here. I don't think it gets much lighter than that. You can see there's no bars on the inside of here. Like I said, we're never going to want to hit any of this on a wall. There's no bars on the inside. This square tube structure goes all the way back, almost to the end of the rear bumper, and you can actually see there's another structure inside of here to hold these pins, which hold the bumper kind of up in place. And when we close the trunk, they look pretty cool there. But they don't interfere or anything. They're holding the bumper up here, and the 2 pins on the sides are holding the bumper up where it's supposed to be on either side. So, and they have a little bit of adjustment. So if this line isn't as tight as they'd like, which I think it looks all right, they can actually squeeze this up or bend it a little and make it fit even better. Back here, there's also space for a chute mount. So there's nothing behind this bar and the bumper. So there's no real bash bar or bumper. It's just this 3/8 rod here holding the bumper up. But you can very easily weld or bolt on a chute mount right here. I guess I'd weld it on. I'm not really sure. I've never welded on a chute mount, but very easily weld a chute mount onto here, which you drill a hole and it would come out right in the center of your bumper. Or, you know, make some type of curve to weld it down. Well, don't weld it to this. The fuel cell will be here, but weld it over here, and it comes out in maybe the license plate hole or something. I think that's pretty normal. I'm not really sure how they do it. I guess I would weld something to here, have it come straight out the back, and then to raise it up, then I'd have the bend so that it's at least pulling on the outside of the car. But I'd really like to have it straight out if I could, so I don't know, I'm not sure. I guess it depends on what chute mount you get. But anyway, they can mount the chute on the back of this very easily, and it'll just come out the rear bumper there. Now let's go take a look at my rear end and really see the differences between these two designs. My car's been in the trailer for a little while now. There'll be another video about it soon. But there's nothing really wrong with it. Just needs a little bit of upgrades. If you look at my tube rear end, I know there's some crappy wiring and my radiator's in the way, my fans are in the way now. But you can tell there's a lot of space between the main tube structure, where the jacking point is mounted, all the way out to my bumper. And that's because drift cars hit walls a lot. And if we were to put this crash structure way back here, we're more than likely going to bend it almost right away. I mean, we really can't have it this far out. That's why we have bash bars, you know, made out of almost nothing. This is just 1-inch tube mounted way out here. My bumper itself is mounted with zip ties right here. I mean, this thing's kind of made to be crushed. You can see the bars on the inside there actually mounted on bolts so that they can kind of swing and bend out of the way when you hit a wall. You know, if you hit this, I don't know if this bumper is damaged yet. Oh, yep. So there's a couple marks on this bumper already. But yeah, if you get a little too deep into a wall in this corner and it pushes this in, we want it to kind of crush a little bit and then hit that bar right there. That bar will start to swing in on these bolts and hopefully save kind of your fiberglass quarter or your hinges or your trunk or your frame, because this is the main frame structure. It's much stronger than these bars on the side. When you do, you know, fiberglass rear end stuff, you also have to kind of find a way to mount your taillights. So I have these little V-shaped mounts here. But yeah, this tube rear end is quite a bit different than a drag style tube rear end. And all of my weight is further up in the chassis. So really in this chassis, this radiator is too far back, I think. But my fuel cell, my batteries, you know, everything is in the trunk. Like, you can see my fuel cell is actually in line with my strut towers. So we want the weight further forward in the car to reduce the pendulum effect. You can also tell my bumper fits like crap because it's just mounted with zip ties, like I said. I mean, you don't want any pins back here or arrow catches or really anything, because they're just going to bend. They're just going to bend, they're going to tear out of there, they're going to ruin your bumper. So zip ties, they just break, your bumper falls off, and usually you get some scratches like this, but it doesn't ruin the bumper. You can just sand it down, rewrap it. You know, it depends on how bad it gets when I'll rewrap it, but yeah, usually the bumper is salvageable because it just fell off and tumbled off track somewhere or into another car or whatever. But since it's mounted so flimsy, yeah, it doesn't take much damage. It just bounces around off track when you do hit something. In fact, last time I was at the track, my tire hit the bumper there and ripped it off, or I hit the bumper on the ground on a dirt drop or something, and my bumper went flying, and that's what those scratches are from. Usually it's actually harder to design something with the minimum amount of material. I mean, we want super lightweight in this car, right? We're pushing the fuel cell back, of course that has weight. We're pushing the battery back, of course that has weight. But the car itself should be lightweight, and the chassis should be as lightweight as possible. That's why this is all thin wall tube. It's 3/8 rod. It's quick disconnects. I mean, it really takes a lot of thought and kind of design work, a lot of looking at this to understand what the best way to do this is. So there might be better ways than this. Of course, I could have made it even flimsier. I could have used 1 3/8 rod instead of 2 on the kind of bumper pins over here, but I wanted it to be very sturdy up and down. So it's not just like flopping in the wind. I mean, drag cars go really fast, so you don't want the bumper flying off or flopping all around and breaking your taillights or going into the other car in the other lane. So it takes a lot of kind of thought and design work to make something as minimal as possible, as minimal as you can. And because of that, it uses less stuff, which is nice too. That's the other features on this thing. We have rods for hood pins because they have a carbon fiber trunk. And of course there's no latch anymore. So we needed some hood pins. I think they're going to use some arrow catches up into the bottom of this like my car has. So they'll kind of be sticking out up here. We added some tie down hooks. So directly underneath there's 2 tie down hooks. So it's very easy to strap down on the trailer. And they're quite thick. I think these are 1/4 inch or 5/16 thick. And then they really wanted a jacking point. So I usually do kind of the post with the puck on the bottom, but I'm really starting to like the look of these stinger bars. I might make them even deeper in the future. I was a little bit afraid of this being too close to the ground. So this is just kind of 6 inches from the bar up here, which is about 1/2 inch further than mine, but it also shouldn't be anywhere near touching the ground. I mean, we got plenty of space on these kind of big slicks he's got. So yeah. The fuel cell is set 1 inch above this, so you would just be able to put the jack underneath this and jack her on up. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty proud of this one. If you have an E90, E92 drag car, I can make you something very similar and probably improve every time. Honestly, that's just the way this stuff goes. If you have any other type of car, I can make you one of these too. Turning out to be some good side work, all this tube front end and rear end stuff. So hit me up if you want some tube work. Since you guys have seen me building tube structures in 5 or 6 videos now. I mean, I feel like I'm always welding tube, always bending tube, always making something out of tube on a car. I didn't want to do another video just watching me build something out of tube, especially since it's the same kind of series of car that I normally do. It's E90, E9X3 series. So I thought I would just do a little comparison video of drift tube rear end versus drag tube rear end. These guys are coming to pick this up today. They should be here in about an hour, maybe a little less. I hope they're stoked on it. I'm pretty stoked on it. I think it came out great. I think it was really nice. So I think it does everything they needed, and we'll see what they think. So if you want to see more content like this, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button if you like all this tube work. If you don't like it, leave a comment. Maybe I missed something. Tell me what I did wrong. I want to know. Because if I did miss something, if I didn't consider something, if everybody's doing something that I'm not, I want to know about it and I can consider doing it in the future ones. But I think, for the most part, I really take a lot into consideration, so hopefully I didn't miss anything serious. Another one heading on home.